I have made preparations. If I am defeated, I know it will be because my understanding of the universe was incomplete. I failed to anticipate some strategy, some nemesis. So I will prepare a book, which is a map to a weapon, and my vanquisher will read that book, seeking the weapon, and they will come to understand me, where I have been and where I was going. And then they will take up my weapon, and they will use it. They will use that weapon, which is all that I am. And armed thus with my past and my future and my present, they will mantle me, Oryx, the Taken King. They will become me, and I will become them, each of us defeating the other, correcting the other, alloying ourselves into one omnipotent philosophy. Thus, I will live forever. I'll make sure.
At last, I will have vengeance!
Hey everybody, it's your buddy Beard Grizzly, and I have a bit of a theory. Might be a bit spin-foily, but that's how discussions get started, and I want to start today by asking you the question. Do you want to revive Oryx? No? Well, how about Crota? Still no? Then I'd stop shooting things, and fast, because you have the ability to bring them back from their apparent final deaths. Let's get the basis for this out of the way, and we're just gonna jump right in. Hard hats on, with tinfoil hats. Just doubled up. In the Book of Sorrows, Oryx kills Savathun and Xivu Arath. Should I have given a spoiler warning? Oh well, damage done. I mean, the books have been out for over a year now. People have read them aloud on the interwebs, and I wrote my own book on them. Or nearly. Yeah, okay, we're safe. Anyway, these two major hive happen to be Oryx's sisters. While in a failing battle against a race called the Akumene, Oryx, Xivu, and Savathun found their worms were not being given enough tribute to keep them happy and alive. In case you need a refresher or aren't sure, in short, the worms inside the hive need to be given tribute from combat, which is how the hive are able to be immortal and grow together. Basically, it's a symbiotic relationship. There's more to it, but that's the short version. Basically, the Akumene had stalled the offensive that the hive had started, which started to weaken the hive. Without constant combat and victories, things looked bleak for the sisters. Oryx had a plan, however, and it led to him killing his sisters to gain their power. Yeah, it's how that works. These were true deaths, for they happened in the Sword World. Then he went to the worm named Akka. Oh, good grief, there's so much to cover in a short time. I'll keep this as brief as I can, but if I lose you, let me know in the comments below, and I'll try my best to make this clear. The Sword Realm for a hive is created by their own power. This is where they can go when they are killed in the physical world. Basically, their soul can retreat there and they can re-emerge after this false death. Here's the catch. If a hive is killed in this realm and their soul is destroyed, they can never come back from this realm. Or can they? Oryx goes to kill the worm god Akka. He turns into Oryx, he makes the Tablets of Ruin, giving him taken powers, and calls himself the Taken King, blah blah blah. Then this crap happens. Oryx made war on the Akumene for 100 years. At the end of those 100 years, he killed the Akumene Council on the Fractal Wreath, and from their blood rose Xivu Arath, saying, "I am war, and you have conjured me back with war." Oryx was glad, for he loved Xivu Arath. The Akumene wailed in grief. Then Oryx and Xivu Arath made war on the Akumene for 40 years. At the end of those 40 years, Oryx said to the Dakawa nest, "Listen, I am jealous of my sibling Xivu Arath. Help me kill her." And in desperation, they agreed. But he drove the Dakawa nest into a trap, and they were made extinct. From their ashes rose cunning Savathun, saying, "I am trickery, and you have conjured me back with trickery." Oryx was glad, for he loved Savathun. The Akumene fled into the void. Yeah, so Death means nothing to the Hive, basically. They get killed in the Sword Realm, being claimed as true deaths, but clearly this means jack. Now, I won't say this isn't done for the sake of lazy writing, but let's take it as truth. Let's take this to mean that if you focus a Hive's essence and they're truly dead, this means you can call them back from that death. From the last passage in verse 3:9, we know Xivu's focus was war, and Savathun's was cunning. From earlier cards, we know that Oryx's focus was understanding and knowledge, plus exploration for bonus points. I'm sure I could have summed this up better, but if you're still with me through the details, thanks. Let's shift gears and look at Crota. Crota's a little harder to pinpoint since we don't openly know his focus. Oryx has said it's to wage war against the Traveler. Oryx also gives Crota his name. Thus I name you Crota, Eater of Hope. After an encounter with the Vex in Oryx Sword World, however, I kind of beg to differ with this assumption. "My son," he said, "this is your punishment. Come home glorious, or die forgotten." He picked up Crota by the legs and threw him into the Vex Gate network. Crota battled through history, becoming a legendary demon. In his early centuries, he often spared a few victims to hear oaths and protests against his father. Later, he came to understand Oryx, and he made temples and monuments wherever he went. The focus of a hive needs to be given at birth of that hive, so that's where my idea kind of falls flat, I know. But hear me out. After the Ecumene had been, for the most part, wiped out, Oryx put into place a way to ensure all Hive never went hungry. As the Hive killed and were victorious, they were meant to pass their tribute up a chain of command. This gave Oryx the ability to study his powers further while not playing as active a role in combat. Oryx speaks about Crota in a few places about him supplying him with tribute. "My son Crota feeds me rich tribute. Lately, I have realized how much I depend on Crota and my daughters, and even upon my court. If I lost them, my outlays would exceed my intakes. My tribute would not be enough to feed my worm." Let's look back at the last line in verse 4:10. Later, he came to understand Oryx, and he made temples and monuments wherever he went. To me, this says his focus is to wage war wherever he can go, so long as it's in tribute of Oryx. Oryx effectively portrays this in a rushed manner before throwing Crota through the Vex portal. To reiterate, "My son," he said, "this is your punishment. Come home glorious, or die forgotten." To sum this up, Crota's focus seems to be to simply wage war against the light, very similar to what it is with Xivu Arath's, but as long as it's in understanding his father and passing tribute to him. This is a meshing of family traits and values among the sisters, which Crota seems to emulate with all of the different parts that he creates: his fist, eyes, heart, so on. It's important to establish Crota's focus because of what happens with Xivu and Savathun in the fight against the Ecumene. Since it's been a bit, just to reiterate, "And from their blood rose Xivu Arath, saying, I am war, and you have conjured me back with war. From their ashes rose cunning Savathun, saying, I am trickery, and you have conjured me back with trickery." Oryx is understanding and knowledge, while Crota's is, seemingly, anything involving his father's efforts and furthering them. And then we kill Crota. And then we kill Oryx, and we seemingly do so in their sword realms, which we've already established is complete and utter tripe. Let's take a brief intermission to look at this puppy. And we're back. There are 2 items, and subsequently 2 weapons, we need to look at when dealing with Crota and Oryx. First, we'll look at Crota. I've always thought there was some kind of link to what we did with Necrochasm and forming it from the Crota's raid end, but I never put 2 and 2 together with the gun, Eidolon Ally, and the crux of Crota. Having never owned or used Necrochasm before, it's been a sore spot to visit, but this is why we're a community, and I have to give a major shout out to Imiko, who found a major connection here. Sadly, this was only in a chat that we share, so I don't have a link to present with his theory, but I didn't want to take credit for this one, because frankly, I missed it. His theory feels that the crux of Crota is really the essence of Crota, which, if you take the definition of crux, the decisive or most important point at issue. Synonyms include heart, essence, core. You'd almost think I'd be able to put 2 and 2 together from Touch of Malice and Necrochasm, but I didn't. Speaking of touch... You got the touch! None of that! Touch of Malice is a pretty big deal. Eris tasks us with getting parts from certain hive members. We're supposed to get the Blade of Famine from the War Priest, the Shroud of Iranuk from the Death Singers, and the icing on the cake, the Ravenous Heart from Oryx. All of these items are seemingly bashed into the making of the gun, along with the essence of the feast from Mar Zik, the Blightcaller. Just to make sure I've got all my bases covered with all the items. Basically, we shove Oryx and Crota's essence into these weapons, and now we're running around with them. Not to mention, by also putting together the Touch of Malice, we find the record left by Oryx, the Books of Sorrow, which leads to the beginning of this video. I'll make sure. Just as Oryx held the ability to bring back his sisters from the dead, so too do we to bring back Oryx and Crota. Of course, you could easily counter this claim by saying we hold their souls and essence within Necrochasm and Touch of Malice, but remember, Oryx didn't become less powerful the moment Xivu and Savathun were resurrected from their dead state. They were brought back from blood and ash of the Akumene by using their focus as hive, giving proper tribute to their worms. And so the further we look out into the stars, we are following in the footsteps of Oryx, better understanding our past and our present and our future. And in doing so, we effectively further Oryx's focus, which in turn may be Crota's focus of simply furthering his father's goals of snuffing out the light. For all we know, it was Oryx's goal to die at our hands, to be reunited with his son, and perhaps come back from his eventual death, bringing Crota back at the same time to wage war against the Traveler or whatever else may have killed them both. Just now, it's his father and son instead of separately. I feel like after all that explanation and just coming to the big point, I'm left here wondering, how do I top that phrase? So I'm just gonna go now. What do you guys think? Am I really off the deep end with this long theory? Am I really cuckoo for Cocoa Buffs? Will Johnny Bravo ever get the girl? Let me know down in the comments below your thoughts on this theory, or if you'd add to it or change anything at all. You can safely take your spin foil cap off for now if you just don't want to do anything with my crazy-brained ideas. And if you're just not sure what to say, you could leave the phrase Resurrection Theory in a comment below. As always, remember to subscribe, share, and like or dislike so I know what you guys like to see from me. I've been Beard Grizzly. Keep your guns greased up and your lights strong, Guardians. And I'll see you next space time.